And good evening. Welcome to the Mayor and City Council Workshop, City of Taneytown. This is for Wednesday, May the 5th, 2021. We'll begin with our pledge of the flag. I'll ask Councilwoman Fuller to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. We'll begin with our roll call. It appears that everyone is present and accounted for, so the records may reflect accordingly. We will also begin with a review of the minutes. This is for the April 7th and April 12th regular meetings. Is there any discussions, changes, amendments to the minutes as presented to you this evening? No? All right. If everyone is satisfied, they will be up for approval on Monday evening. I will now ask the council if they have any conflicts of interest on any item on the agenda this evening.
No, sir.
All right. Hearing none, we shall move on. Up for adoption Monday evening. First, we have Resolution 2021-07, amendments to the Personnel Manual. I'm going to throw over to City Manager Wieprick to kind of give us an update of what he's looking to amend in this.
Okay, very quickly, it's essentially just adding maternity or paternity leave as a reason to use sick leave. Since I've been acting as city manager, it's come to my attention that historically, employees have been allowed to use sick leave for maternity leave or paternity leave, rather. In our case, I think that's been the only time we've had it used. But in looking at the personnel manual, that really isn't listed in there. So really, it's just catching the manual up to a practice that's been in place. However, to avoid hardship in a department, we did want to limit it for a period not to exceed 30 days from the date of birth or adoption of a child, so that we won't have somebody, and I'll use the police department as an example, where due to the nature of their schedules, they can have several days off, at one time. So if they only use, say, 3 days of sick leave, and then they have 3 days scheduled off, and so on, that 30 days, if it wasn't calendar days, that sick leave could extend to a very long time. So in talking with department heads who do have staff, limiting it to 30 days was considered desirable and to avoid scheduling problems. So really, it's just adding that to the manual so people can officially use sick leave for birth or adoption of a child.
All right. Any questions or input from council on what's been presented to you?
And I'll just add the changes in the blue text in your packet. That's all the language that is changing.
Does everyone feel that 30 calendar days is sufficient for both maternity and paternity leave? Okay. they were presented to you in your packet. Mayor Pro Tem Foster, go ahead.
Yeah, two departments under the IT department about the MXU units that we get no readings on. Jim, is that 39 number a constant number? In other words, are they the same addresses? Have we been carrying them for the last 13 months of the pandemic?
We carried a lot of them through the pandemic. Over the last couple months, we have started to go back into homes to install the new units. There are still some folks who prefer not to have someone come into their home to do that. But we're basically catching up from a year of not going in and replacing the units.
Okay, so what we're doing to bill these people is going on the last reading you got, which could be 2-3 years old?
It would go on the average up to the point that we stopped getting a read for their meter. So probably not that old, but at this point, some could be based on estimates based on their usage prior to the pandemic.
Which means we could be overbilling them or underbilling them.
Yes.
More
And
likely underbilling them.
I think it probably
a reasonable expectation. And we are kept on the number that we can't get reads on. See, I think Dan may have included that. Yes, so last month we had 55 that we couldn't read. So the number is dropping now that we're getting into the homes and starting to catch up on those units.
I don't know. I sure would like to see this number get a lot lower. And I just don't know what we're going to do about it.
Okay.
Well, Jim, protocol for after so many warnings, we do shut off. And how many warnings is that, Jim?
I will have to look that up. I don't recall how many quarters we give them before, or how many attempts at communication we give them before we ultimately send them a letter saying that if they don't respond to us within a certain period, that we'll turn their water off. We have sent a few of those out, and we have extended in a couple cases where there's an individual that has indicated that they have somebody in the house with underlying conditions, and they're concerned about outsiders coming in. So we have done some extensions of that policy where people just don't want somebody coming into their house because of the pandemic. But I will have that for you Monday night. I don't recall off the top of my head the timing of it.
I know down in the office, I was there when they were dealing with 2, and they were actually overcharging with the estimates. So to anyone who watches this, if you have the watermark on your water bill stating that we need access to it to fix the battery, it is to your benefit that we do it sooner rather than later. If the estimate is high, that means you're overpaying. Yes, ultimately you'll get that credit back. If the estimate is low, you will owe at the end of it. So it is definitely to your benefit to reach out to the city office and get this resolved as quickly as possible. It's a very short process for Public Works to come in and take care of it. So hopefully we can get that number down. So anything else, Mayor Pro Tem Foster?
Yes, one other thing. On the Public Works report, they list a figure of what we pay for 55 tons of recycling. Just as a request, can we, okay, that was, when was that, March? Can they put the last month so we can have something to compare it to? I like to sort of keep up with where we are?
Sure, we can include that
You know,
going forward.
Yeah, include, like last month it was this month it's that.
Right. And prior to the implementation of that recycling tipping fee, Mr. Smeek typically would just indicate whether we were billed or not because of the issues that we had where if there was trash in the recycling or plastic in the recycling, they would bill us. So perhaps
But additionally, I'd like to keep up so we can always make the recycling pitch.
Yes,
Yep.
Certainly.
I think if that could be in the form of like a year-to-date graph, that would be great. That way you can kind of see what kind of trend we have there. That would be great information.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else have any questions on departmental reports?
Yeah, Mayor, I did. I was curious. I know that under Parks and Rec, she was talking about the vandalism that happened at THS Park and the cameras that they're going to hopefully have installed. I was hoping we could get a little bit more information and find out about cameras at all the parks, just to kind of cut back on the possibility and maybe just to be able to assist the cops with that one small crew that I'm sure is the one causing all the problems.
Right. So we have cameras currently in Memorial Park. We have some at THS. They do want to add the one for this playground since it seems to be attractive to vandals. In terms of Roberts Mill, it's a matter of finding poles in places that they can actually get coverage for cameras. Roberts Mill is a fairly open park with not a lot of poles. But I know as money allows, Lorena is very interested in getting as many cameras out there as she can. This one's particularly pressing for her to do. And also they had to work with Potomac Edison to use the pole that they're going to be putting it on, as well as power to it. But yeah, I know it is one of her priorities as money is available to do that. We do have the Wi-Fi mostly available throughout the city as long as there's line of sight. But yes, that is one of her priorities to get that done.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that we don't shortchange ourselves and get crummy cameras that don't really serve a purpose. I'd like to see us get something that's a little bit more worthwhile and that we can actually see what's going on.
Right. And that's all about getting it close enough that you can get a clear shot. I have been informed that we do currently have 4 cameras in Roberts Mill Park. So we do have some. No, you're right. We want to make sure that we get the best cameras out there to get the best possible view. That way when we go on Facebook and say identify these people, it doesn't look like the picture is taken with a potato. So I agree with you completely. I know with the RIT department, they kind of stay up on the technology, and I think they're always looking at what the best options are within reasonable financial bounds. All right. Any other questions from council on departmental reports? Okay. If we are satisfied with that, we shall move on to Mr. Gullo with a legal report. Sir?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This month has been obviously the final month that was for the prep work for the election. And you're going to get a full report on that on Monday from our clerk. But let me just say that this election was done flawlessly because of her preparation and her efforts and getting everybody in the team together. As you know, it's not just the election day. It's pre-meetings with the election board, the ethics board. It takes a lot of things to happen. And she really did a great job doing this. And that's why you can see the results were very smooth without problems. So you'll hear more from her on Monday. As far as a follow-up to the city manager's report with the Trevanian Terrace, we have the statute basically says when a person buys a property at tax sale, they have to pay the outstanding taxes. And then they need to pay the taxes that have accrued during the time period during the foreclosure. And so we're at approximately $22,000 worth of taxes that are owed. And the argument is being made, of course, as Jim said, we have the deed. We hope to get the deed on record and then have our discussion about the taxes at a later date, because we're not going anywhere and we're good for it. But the issue after the deed is recorded is we are a municipal corporation, therefore we're exempt from paying real estate taxes. And some of those taxes would actually be taxes that the county collected on our behalf, meaning town taxes. So there needs to be some calculations based on what would be owed. And then, of course, the ultimate, as Mr. Weeprick said, is that this is basically going to be used for the stormwater task force that we have. And so therefore the county and the town benefit as well. So there's some solutions going on. Mr. Weeprick's working with his contacts to work through the administrative side. I'm working with the legal contacts at the county, and we'll keep you updated with what needs to happen. So, but we're on the final stages of that. So that's as a positive as well. And those are the big happenings for this month. Is there any questions? I can happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's it.
All right, I'll ask the council, do you have any questions for the city attorney? Okay. Hearing none. Mr. Gullo did reference the tremendous work that Clara put in as our city clerk for the election. We appreciate it. I do also wish to point out that this week is Municipal Clerks Week. So please reach out to Clara, let her know how much you appreciate everything she does for mayor and council as well as the city as a whole. But this is her week, and we made her do an election the first day of it. So that's how terrible bosses we are to her. But yes, thank you so much for everything you do, Claire. It's much appreciated having you in on all these meetings, always getting us the information we need. The minutes are always spectacular. It's the perfect amount of detail. And your handling of the election, I think, was just spot on. So you're doing a tremendous job. Thank you so much. And happy Clerks Week to you. Let's see, moving on. We have nothing in old business, so we're going to jump into some new business. Monthly financial report is presented to you in your packet. Are there any questions on the monthly financials? Nope. Okay. That will be up for your approval. Same with the next accounts payables. Any questions or concerns with our accounts payables this month? Okay. Next, we have Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church regarding their parking lot. We received a letter from the church referencing an old agreement between the city and the church regarding their parking lot and the city's use of which. Essentially, they do permit people to use our parking lot as more or less overflow or off-street parking. And in the past, the city has contributed towards the repair and maintenance of the parking lot. We've not done anything in quite a number of years. They are now asking if we would consider contributing to help improve that lot. It's become in pretty poor condition. And I don't see, Jim, do we have a copy of the letter or the amount that they're requesting?
No, that was not in your packet. I can grab that real quick and get it in front of me, though.
Okay. While he's doing that, as I mentioned, they do allow off-street parking, especially on the West Baltimore Street side where there's really no parking lots available to the public. It is available to people for those businesses over there. As you can imagine, no anchovies, balling your guns. They do get quite a bit of traffic, and it's helpful to have that parking lot. Once we can kind of get that figure in front of you, you can consider whether you're interested in the city helping them out in making some repairs to that. And I believe the agreement that they referenced dates back to, if I remember right, it's like the 50s or something. It's going back quite a distance.
Sure. They make mention in the letter of blacktopping in 1958, that the share that the church paid and the town paying half of that. We have not been able to locate any documentation in the minutes at this point. And in talking with Clara, and Clara, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were to go to the state archives to obtain copies of older minutes, we really don't know exactly which set of minutes to ask for. And there's not a way through the archives to do like an online search where we can search for words or things of that nature. So we would basically have to ask for certain years of minutes and then kind of wade through those to try to find some record of these things. Just along those lines, I have had conversations with former city council members who have supported that, yes, indeed, the city did have this agreement with the churches that people would be, allowed to use the church parking essentially as additional public parking, and the city would contribute to the ongoing maintenance of those. Again, we haven't come across anything in minutes yet to confirm that, but we do have from past elected officials, confirmation that yes, indeed, that is what was established back in the 50s. So that said, the letter that was sent on April 15th, let's see, what are they looking to do? Yeah, there's not a specific dollar amount specified. The church is just requesting the city to consider helping with the repair of the parking lot. Then it goes on to give kind of an excerpt from the church's history of when the city did participate in repairs over the years. But yeah, I do not see a specific dollar amount in the letter that they're requesting right now. So at this point, we can certainly go back to the church, ask if they have a dollar amount that they are looking for. I don't know if they will be able to provide that before Monday night. So perhaps we can, if that is not the case, perhaps Monday we can simply have consensus as to whether either a participate up to a certain dollar amount or a percentage, or if the decision is to not assist, we can let them know that as well.
I think what I would like to ask of council is the fact that digging up an old agreement from 1958, I don't think is the best use of our time. I prefer that we consider creating a new, more or less agreement or resolution that is in the best interest of the city, that we partner with these churches for their parking lots and that we contribute accordingly within reason to maintain those. I think it's appropriate that we do that fresh. We are in a different millennium at this point. So I think it's good that we kind of revisit that and do our own. Mr. Weeprick, I see your finger sticking there.
Yep. I spoke in error. I did not have the window on my screen properly here. So now that I can see more of the letter, they received 3 bids. The quote: to clean the cracks, fill with hot rubberized filler, seal coat the 27,020 square feet with pave shield seal coat, and stripe the parking lot is $5,130. That was the estimate they obtained in the fall, and they are hoping that that price will still hold, but they are not certain if the contractor will honor that price still.
Okay. That would be the whole price of the bid, and they would be asking for contribution towards that. Mayor Pro Tem Foster, I believe you were the first with your hand up.
Okay, Jim, they are specifically asking for a contribution towards, not payment of.
Yes.
Yes.
Respectfully requesting the city to consider helping with this endeavor.
Yep.
Okay, I still think that we need, a policy in place that we will contribute to the maintenance of, these church parking lots, like the mayor suggested. But I guess what we should do is agree on an amount.
Okay.
I'm in favor of contributing to. We just have to agree on an amount.
Okay. Let's go on. Councilwoman Fuller, I believe you had something.
Well, originally my thought was that we should just draw up a new agreement.
Right.
And you kind of touched on that. And I wonder if it wouldn't be better to just kind of put some kind of percentage in the agreement, depending on what actual work is being done. typically I would imagine they do a lot of repair work before they decide to redo a whole parking lot. But yeah, price differential is going to be quite a bit more.
Well, I think a conversation to be had with maybe Kevin Smeek is a rough idea of what maintenance is on a parking lot like these and what we would commit to on an annual or biannual basis. I don't want to be yep, we're going to cover half your repairs, and I don't want every year that we're paying out $5,000, for miscellaneous repairs, things like that. I do want to be reasonable. I also want to be fair to everybody. Councilman Bigliotti?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm in agreement with everybody that I like the idea of cost sharing for the parking lot repairs, given the history of the relationship between, the churches and the city and the use of their parking lots. I also agree with Councilwoman Fuller and what Mayor Pro Tem Foster and you, Mr. Mayor, have said so far about drawing up a new agreement in the spirit of the original agreement. And I had two questions. One of them sort of got answered. Did they have a specific amount that they were going to be requesting towards that $5,130? And then the second question, I'll ask that question first before I get caught up with the second one.
They didn't ask for a specific amount, just help toward. I think historically there was mention of a 50% cost sharing in the past. And so I think that's what we should be looking to do for them. I think that's fair considering they use the parking lot twice a week, and then it's available for visitors and residents of our city, the rest of the time. I think 50% is more than fair from the city to contribute to that. And go ahead, Councilman, you had something else?
Yeah, so my second question is, do we have any idea of how often we've done this in the past to help them? And I guess a question that is kind of tangential to that is, would they have, do we ever advertise the fact that the public is able to park in this particular lot? Or is it just simply the lot exists, and if you happen to stumble across it, you park there? Because I know I've used that a number of times myself when there's been an event downtown, or when I've gone in to visit some of the shops there. That's usually the parking lot that I use. And, unless you know that you can park there, you don't realize that you can park there.
I think it's been a matter of availability and people going to it. I don't think we have specific signs pointing towards them. But it's a matter of they allow people to trespass on their private property for this benefit. Do you have anything additional, Mr. Weeprick?
Just to add, there is something of a word of mouth that parking is available for them. So I do know that some of the businesses downtown do refer people to, park in that lot. If they're not able to park right on the street, that's a secondary spot that they can seek.
Okay, Councilman Fuller, go ahead.
I'm sorry. If we're going to think about donating 50% of, whatever the cost is for this maintenance, wouldn't it be beneficial to actually have one of those small parking signs so that we're actually getting, I drive by there a lot. There might be maybe 5 or 6 cars that park there regularly. And I'm not saying that people don't use it often, but it's not a lot of people. So I feel like we should get at least our money's worth, maybe, if we're going to be contributing that much.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a discussion we need to have with them. Also keeping in mind that I think that parking lot realistically would only serve maybe 4 businesses tops. And I say that stretching down to the square. The dance studio, the coming soon around the corner deli, then you have New Anchovies and Bollinger. So I think 5 or 6 cars in there, that's a positive thing to me. But yeah, I think that is a discussion we could have, is if they're comfortable with us advertising it with a parking sign, that it can be used.
Okay. And that would just be something I would want to be opening back up. We're hoping to get more businesses. It would be nice if we had that opportunity to use it, for additional parking, though I can see how Sundays would be difficult. And when they have their own events, we don't want to, kind of.
Steal all their parking.
Right.
Agreed. That's a valid point. Mayor Pro Tem Foster?
Mayor, you mentioned 50%.
I did.
50% of the cost of a totally new parking lot could be quite a bit.
It could be, right.
So I just want to caution, do we really want to do 50%?
Well, I guess the hope is that
or maybe we could say 50% of maintenance and a lesser percent of a totally new parking lot.
Right. I guess the idea is if the maintenance is kept up, you're really deferring the need for a whole new parking lot to a certain extent. I know eventually they'll all have to be replaced, but you do make a very good point, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Something to roll around. Do you have a figure in your head you wanted to throw out at that, or?
No, well, I'd like to see what Kevin has to say first about, maintenance versus the total repair, the total replacement of a parking lot.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Mr. Weeper, can you get some information from Kevin for us?
I sure can. And I will point out that our estimates to replace the parking lot at Memorial Park that is across from the football field is $300,000 to basically rebuild that entire parking lot. So what's before us for the church currently is just a, repairing cracks and then seal coating the surface. Nothing like a mill and overlay type project like we would do on a street or, and again, with the proper maintenance, hopefully, the lot will stand up to the traffic for many, many years. But I would suggest that certainly we could cap a certain percentage for routine maintenance, maybe up to a certain figure or something, and then include in there that costs of a more capital nature, can be explored as the need arises, something like that.
I think that would be a better idea. Is when that comes up, I think we should kind of have a say on the necessity of and what we would contribute to it.
And while getting back to Councilwoman Fuller's observations, I see that lot regularly as well. And typically there are, 4 to 6 cars that park there regularly. Some are folks who live in the apartment building on the corner, but on street sweeping days and on snow days, with Baltimore Street being a snow emergency route and the expectation of moving cars off of the street, as well as just to facilitate plowing, that lot does get rather full, on street sweeping days and during snow events as well. So people are utilizing it, that's for sure.
Great. So I think it's only fair that we continue with a tradition that we've heard and contribute to the maintenance of such. So with that, I ask council if they're okay with us asking staff to put together a quick agreement that we can then execute with the churches. Do we have consensus for such? Looks like we do.
Okay.
So I'll throw it back to you and we can get all that figured out.
And we'll work with the city attorney on that and get it ready.
Okay. If I would ask in the meantime, if you don't mind reaching out to Trinity, find out if that figure is still good. I don't want to hold up a project, especially if time is of the essence for that figure. So if we need to approve that 50% for them prior to an agreement being ready, I believe myself and council may be amenable to such a thing. I definitely don't want to hold them up if we don't need to.
Okay. I will come back.
Great. Any additional questions or comments regarding that? All right. Very good. We shall move on to number 4, contract extension consideration or approval for Ecker's Lawn Service. They provide significant lawn maintenance throughout our parks, as well as other needs that we have. And I believe we're simply going to be looking to extend the approval that we have on the current contract. Anything additional, Mr. Weeprick, on that?
That was a good summary. Thank you.
Perfect. Comments, questions, general queries from the council? Councilman Bigliotti?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be possible to, by Monday night, get us a copy of that contract so that we can review it? So that, that we have something to talk about Monday?
Yes.
Yep, we'll have that for you by Monday.
All right. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Very good. Overall, if I can just put in my 2 cents, I think they've done a very nice job of having our parks maintained well. I know they work on sports fields, having them cut and ready for games and such. So I do hope that we see in our best interest to do so. Next, we have a special event approval, the Welcome Home Lifestyle Home Show and Expo, tentatively scheduled for September 18th and 19th at Memorial Park. There is the application and appropriate maps and diagrams in your packet. Are there any questions from the council on this? Okay. Hearing none, that will be up for your approval Monday evening. And lastly, we're going to come back again, awarding of the bid for the Micro C bulk storage. It was mentioned that I believe by Monday we'll have a memo of sorts. We have a memo in here, excuse me, discussing the recommendation for for approving that bid. The amount was $139,700 by PSI Pumping Solutions. Any questions from the council regarding this bid? Councilman Vigliotti?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In the memo, it references how the bid package appeared in order but was missing required project references. And I guess I'm just kind of curious about what exactly those references were, why they were missing, and if that's going to affect anything in terms of awarding the bid or the beginning of the work.
I'll send that to Mr. Weeprick.
Okay. They typically in the bid documents, they will provide references, the satisfied customer sort of thing. In this case, they did not provide that, but we have worked with PSI on other city projects, so they are a known vendor for us. And while we've had some hiccups with projects that they've been involved with, in the end, they delivered the product as it was needed. And this is a much more simple project than something like the Well 17 well house, which is a project that they were involved with. With that one, just to elaborate a little bit, we had some issues with coordinating the telephone line and the alarm system and the ventilation system, and it was designed to all mesh together, or that was the intent, but different individuals did different parts of the design and they didn't all mesh, and we had a lot of back and forth with a number of vendors on that before we were ultimately able to bring the well online. And unfortunately PSI was involved in that project, and they were one of the vendors we were going back and forth with over the largely communications issue with the systems in the well house. So, but at any rate, in the end, they did deliver the project that we needed, and per the budget. And the end result was that we've been satisfied with the product. So we're comfortable moving forward with them with the Micro C.
All right,
Thank you.
Councilman, did you have other questions from before, Councilman Vigliotti, that you want to bring up?
And
I'll get the expectancy for you.
Thank you very much. And yes, Mr. Mayor, that was the question. So thank you very much for that.
Very good. Any other questions from members of council? Okay, that will be up for your approval or your award on Monday evening. With that, I do want to mention a couple of things. I do want to congratulate the winners of the election from Monday, our incumbents, Mayor Pro Tem Foster, Councilman Vigliotti, Councilman Fuller were successful in their bid to be reelected, and congratulations to them. I do want to extend a very grateful thank you to Barbara Cook as a candidate, who I think made a valiant effort and definitely showed she has a passion for the city. And I do hope that she continues to be involved. And I know we'll be seeing her again in the council chambers when everything opens back up. I think overall, as discussed previously, the election was rather successful. It was a low turnout, unfortunately. 266 people voted, which is roughly 5% of registered voters in the city. That is the lowest turnout we've had since the late 90s, I believe. That is disheartening. I know there's been discussion on social media regarding several people stating they weren't aware of the election going on, stating that the city needs to do a better job of informing people. I have not responded on Facebook. I do want to say this. I think the city did an adequate job of notifying. It was put on city social media. It was in the Taneytown Record. It was in the Carroll County Times. Candidates, I know, also put it out to constituents as well. I posted on my social media page. There were several people that found it in several locations. There are always places for improvement. In social media, everything's changing. I do ask people, simply broaden your horizons a little bit. If you want to continue to be informed of City of Taneytown happenings, I encourage you to follow the City of Taneytown social media pages. We try really hard to get information out. I believe we have been one of the most transparent governments the city has had, and we'll continue doing that. We'll continue finding ways to improve. But I do ask that for as many steps as we take to get information to you, I do ask that you take a step or two to also find it as well. I don't have any blame to put on anybody. I think everyone did a great job in making this success. Again, the information was out there, and I'm sorry that some people felt that they were left out. That is disheartening to me. I know there were things we learned, and in the future, you can expect it to be even better. So in 2 years, we're going to have an election. It's going to be the first Monday in May. Go ahead and put it on your calendars, and we'll hopefully do better then. Everyone can be aware. I'd love to get back to when we had over 1,000 people coming out to vote. That's exciting to me. The more voices we have, the more confident we are in the results. And that's what I have to say about that. But again, congratulations to those who won their re-elections. Monday evening, the plan is such. There will be the swearing in, or the re-swearing in of the winning candidates. I plan on us returning to in-person council meetings, at least still streaming, not open to the public quite yet, hopefully in the near future. The council chambers have been renovated, and it should be complete by Monday evening. We will continue streaming council meetings from here on out. We have technology now that will make it a much better experience and easier for everybody. I believe that as a council, we work better when we're in person. The virtual has been sufficient for the last 13, 14 months. I don't know your personal feelings. I'm a little tired of it. I'm ready to get back in person and really work closely with all of you. We are taking appropriate precautions. We will have plexiglass screens up between members. Also, for anyone on council or on staff, if you're not comfortable coming back yet to in person for any reason or another, we can accommodate virtual hybrid settings with our new technology. So reach out to myself to discuss that. But for members of the public, please be aware the intention is to return here in person Monday evening, and then we will let you know as we start letting the public back in for our public meetings. With that, I have nothing else for you this evening, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to hold the meeting up, but when you opened the floor up for questions, I thought you meant specifically about the bid. There's a couple things, if you guys don't mind, that I wanted to bring up under new business tonight, if that's okay.
Okay.
So over the past week, I was approached by a couple residents, and I wanted to field some questions for them. So the first one, I think the first few of these will probably just be for Jim. But the first one, when we get, I think it's the rehab or the facade grants, when we get that grant money and we decide to divvy it out, what sort of standards do we have in place that determine who gets that money and how it's divided out? Like, why does this property get it, and instead of this property, why did they get this sum instead of this sum? Like, how do we sort of rank those properties, so to speak, and how do we decide that? Could you educate me a little bit on that?
Sure. The way it's been administered in the past, it's been up to a 50% reimbursement of costs that were approved by the Maryland Historic Trust.
Okay.
So there's an application that would go in that gets forwarded to the Maryland Historic Trust for review to ensure that it does hold up to their standards. And if it's approved, then the project can move forward and the homeowner or property owner can be reimbursed for up to 50% of their facade related expenses. We have had a lot of trouble getting people to get on board with that program. And the catch, I guess, if you want to call it that, is that the Maryland Historic Trust is not going to approve something that does not align with their mission. So they are all about preservation.
Can I interrupt you, Jim?
Sure.
So nobody can get any money unless the Maryland Historic Trust approves of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are people required to match?
The way the city has administered it, the property owner spends the money and then submits their paid invoices for reimbursement, and they're reimbursed up to 50% of
Gotcha.
the expense.
Okay.
So we do currently have some additional facade money that we're hoping folks will step up for. The state has advised us that we are able to set our own match requirement. So historically, it has been at a 50% level that we would reimburse up to 50% of the cost to the property owner. We could make that a higher percent that they would be reimbursed if we wanted to, and that might spur some more interest in the program. But as I said, we've had some debates with property owners or discussions with property owners who want to make some improvements to their building, but may, for example, want to use modern materials instead of traditional materials. And that certainly is understandable from a long-term maintenance perspective, that, someone may not want to replace the ornate cornice or, gingerbread moldings or whatever it may be on their historic property, and then have an obligation to strip and paint that woodwork every 10 to 12 years or more frequently if it's
Right.
On a side that gets the weather and the sun. So we've had people who have talked about doing projects but have not wanted to do it with the traditional materials. And have chosen not to take advantage of the program for those reasons, or simply because it's out of pocket money up front that you're then reimbursed for. So it's been a challenge to get people to invest in the property, even with getting that facade money back.
Jim, you had mentioned some leftover money. Has the state told us what happens to that money if people don't bite?
We are sort of on borrowed time on that. We did go ahead and request that the state send it to us to do another round of applications. So they would love to close it out, and this is money that has been extended a couple times already.
Oh wow!
So we have roughly $20,000 available, and again, we may be revisiting the percent that can be reimbursed, and that may upset folks who have gone before and have gotten the 50% reimbursement. If now we know that we're going to reimburse 75% or some other number, but those are conversations that we need to be having in the coming weeks, because we really would like to spend down that remaining $20,000. And that's easy to do when you look at the cost of maintaining a historic building.
Right.
But again, it does take some out-of-pocket effort from the property owner.
Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Thank you. My next thing was, I guess, some clarification or education on what's permitted in industrial use zones. So apparently at the end of Mill Street, where that big old mill is in front of the power block there's a decent number of shipping containers. And I wanted to clarify if stacking shipping containers is a permissible use in an industrial zone, if there's any point where that becomes unsightly or excessive, or is that fine? Is that okay?
Sure. I'll wait for the truck to go by. Okay. We actually rezoned that property a couple years back. We did a map correction, and I believe that is now downtown business. But there were a number of entities already operating there under the restricted industrial designation, and those would be allowed to continue. Among uses for industrial would be storage, like things like construction yards, freight yards, things like that, or permissible use in the industrial district. So I would certainly see shipping containers as being something that
I didn't know if because of the continued use there was any sort of weird requirements there or anything like that. Okay.
That area is a bit of a hodgepodge of uses and entities that have occupied those buildings and the sites. We don't have any current site development plans in the works for the old mill building.
Right.
But again, and I don't know as far as I'm not aware of any business entity that has started to operate there in recent years. I know the property has changed hands not too long ago, but whether that changed the people who were already there using the sites, we haven't had anybody come in and change ownership of any businesses or anything like that back there. So my assumption is the folks who were there before are still there, just with a new landlord.
Okay. All right. Awesome. The next thing, I only got two more things, I promise. So again, I guess, Jim, this would be a question for you, but and I don't mean to sound ignorant, but if we can do this, then I guess I would want everybody's input on this. I saw them on the road, and then I got an email about it the next day. So apparently we have new, I guess, Mennonite or Amish neighbors that live nearby, and they frequent 194. And I got an email asking about the feasibility of putting up some buggy crossing signs. Is that something we can do on 194 or anywhere within that vicinity? Would that be worth it?
I'm already working on that.
Okay, awesome. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's outside of city limits, but I'm reaching out to delegation, a couple other people to get that taken care of. So
awesome. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you. And then my last thing, I guess this would be more for Councilman Hale, and you can kind of pivot towards Lorena and the Parks and Rec Board. But I got a lengthy email the other day talking about why it is not good to feed ducks bread. Apparently it's not good for them, and there are better, more conscious alternatives. And apparently they sent me some pictures, apparently in other parks across the country that, in which people are aware of this. They set up educational signs like, here's why bread is bad for ducks. Here's what you can feed them instead, type of thing, just to preserve the health of the ducks and their natural diets and things like that. If you guys feel like we could do some research on that, maybe that's a good idea. See what you think. I don't know.
I think we can go ahead, Councilman Hale. I'll let you start.
Didn't know that was an issue.
Yeah, I learned something new, yeah.
So, ducks are pretty to look at. They can also be a huge, huge bad thing. With respect to the environment of the pond, and the fact we're going to spend a lot of money to walk around that pond. We were out there doing the cleanup of the parks last week and the other week, and it was a mess. But we are having a meeting next Wednesday, so I'll throw that out to them, and we're figuring out, we're starting the discussion on that. So
I can email you some links to some research that I found, kind of explaining duck diets, why you shouldn't feed them bread, that type of thing.
Okay, good. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, so I'll bring it up at our next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna chime in real quick. I'm a big advocate for providing any education we can surrounding our parks. We discussed with Bollinger Park, including education about pollinators with the pollinator garden, so people are aware of the benefits of pollinators, bees, butterflies, whatever they be. And I think visiting the parks, part of the relaxation, there should be an element of education. There's not just controversy of what you can and can't feed ducks. There's also controversy of should you even feed the ducks? They become dependent. They may not migrate any longer, things like that. But I think some education, once we educate ourselves on it, perhaps, is not out of line. So I think one way to dress up a park is to have those nice educational signs instead of just steel posts with "Don't get on the ice" or things like that.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
But anything we can do to make people more aware and respectful of nature in our parks, I'm all for. So we'll punt that to Councilman Hale. You can work with your advisory board and see what they come up with, okay? All right, now that we're on a roll, anyone else want to throw anything into the ring? All right, Councilman Vigliotti, suspiciously quiet. Very good. No, that doesn't mean unmute. That doesn't mean unmute. No.
If you want, I can find something.
No, we're good. We'll save it. All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
Second.
Second, please. Very good. We have motion from Councilman Haynes, second from Councilman Fuller, who was more than happy to give that second. All in favor of adjourning for the evening until Monday, signify with your thumbs up. Any opposed? No, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.